We are at the... I think we're at the end game. I don't know. But I think we're at the end game. Like, I'm basing my knowledge right now on the fact that in the weapon tree, there's a couple of monsters we haven't seen, but not many. And I have to imagine, I think there's like 2 that are left, which I assume one of them is one of the monsters we're fighting today. And I've seen the name of another one, so I think that's it. But it's hard to tell. There's a lot of variations and stuff, and armors don't show up until then. But the weapon system does show you, like, there's another tree, you just don't know what it is yet, that makes some sort of mega endgame weapon. And also, this is it. This is not the last TDP, but the penultimate TDP of me being blind to the game. Because as I record this is Monday morning. In a few hours at 5 p.m., the podcast is going to take place with Rurikan, who is an established Monster Hunter World content creator. And via that podcast, everything I've missed, everything I've been playing without, everything I've misunderstood, all the elements of the game that have not been made apparent to me through my gameplay will be revealed. Like, it's going to happen then. Which means I have but a few hours. It's currently 7:45 a.m. And at 5 p.m., that will happen. So I have between the stream starting, which is in, like, I don't know, an hour, till the end of the day to clear this boss. From what I can tell, and I'll get to this in a second, the other boss that I've seen, I can't do seemingly forever, so I assume it's like a mega endgame boss that, like, is for the dedicated few only kind of thing. We'll see on that. But that's what it looks like to me. But I'll explain that. All right, where were we? Well, of course, we had this momentous occasion of defeating Brackers. Like, Brackers went down 2.5 days, or 2.5 stream days of trying. I didn't do any pulls off stream or anything like that to cheese it. I want the experience to be as genuine and authentic as possible. So 2.5 days of attempts. Brackers went down. Momentous. Amazing. Absolutely the best kill I've had so far in this game. And that was one of a 2-boss quest that I was given. So it very much followed the format of the rest of the game, which is like 2 lieutenants, then a big daddy hiding behind it. So my second fight of the 2, which I was like, I dodged this one at first because I just fought its base version. It's Reggie. I can't even remember his real name. He's the monkey. Reggie the monkey. Was kind of brutal. Didn't take me too long, but kind of brutal. Big hulking pounds of muscle. I skipped that one because I've just fought Reggie. I don't really want to go back into it, and it was pretty tough. So Brackers, who I'd fought way earlier in the DLC, seemed like the easier choice and one we can clear before going back to Reggie. That didn't work out too well, but I was dreading this. I was like, okay, this is going to... I think it's Furious or Rampaging Reggie is the name of it. I was like, this thing is going to be horrendous. If based on how Bracky was, this is going to be awful. And then I did a few pulls at the end of the day after I killed Brackers. I had like 3 goes because it was coming to the end of my stream day. And it didn't seem too bad. I was like, so far compared to Brackers, this is way less intense. Like, there's no silly mechanic going on. Like, other than it gains thunder powers and there's a couple of attacks that I'm just not sure how to dodge in those 3 pulls. It really didn't seem that bad. So I came in, and I would like to say that Reggie fought the good fight. I would like to sit here and tell you that Reggie held the line and that Reggie deserved his place alongside Brackers as the other lieutenant. I would like to tell you that. But that is not how it went down. I killed Reggie on the 2nd or 3rd try. I was also, this is just for clarity in case I look bizarre on the stream, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept properly for about 4 days, and the actual day of doing Reggie and what came up, I had only slept 2 hours that night because my wife's very unwell. So a lot of tossing and turning and waking up and things like that. So I had not slept. I was exhausted, and Reggie just went down. Ultimately, this fight was very apparent on how you deal with it. And I'm actually going to say, from a more analytic standpoint, now I've thought about it a bit, I'm guessing that in a very general, broad brush sense, that Brackers was very anti-melee. That's how I felt about it. It's a very anti-melee fight. It's extremely erratic, very difficult to hit certain body parts, and also has constant splash damage around its body, where ranged would have been superior, I believe. Whereas Reggie was actually pro-melee and maybe anti-range. Reggie does a lot of things if you get away from him, but if you stay pretty close, he doesn't do all that much. And in fact, he just kind of belly flops around, so you can just whack away at him and just chip him down. So I also got to trap him. I had a really funny moment with Reggie where he started limping, and I was like, oh, we're done, because you could trap him. But then I remembered that Brackers went to an area where you couldn't drop a trap for his, like, ultimate second phase. So I thought very quickly, I was like, I wonder if I could just stop him going to... I fully expected Reggie to go to, like, a crazy second phase like Brackers did. But... So I got my flashbug out, and I flashed him, which stopped him, and then I dropped a trap and started trank bombing him, but he broke out of the trap in the time it took me to drop a trank bomb. And I was like, oh, Jesus. So I fought him again, and I was like, I tried to flash him again, and then I had to stop and craft a new trap, because you can't shock trap him. You need pitfall traps, which take a while to drop, compared to shock traps, which are almost instant. And I was, like, messing around it, but he did get away from me, and once he was, like, immune to flashing. But he was just asleep. He was just lying on the floor asleep, so I just dropped the trap and trank bombed him, and boom, done. I was like, oh, okay. Very disappointing, honestly. Very, very disappointing, considering they're part of the same quest line, and you can't complete the quest until you kill both of them. I was like, these are just not in the same category. Again, it might be a case of one is more melee-centric and is fine, like Reggie is, and Brackers is not, and maybe I would have had a very simple time if I'd just gone, oh, this guy's more anti-melee than I would like. I'm going to switch to bow or gun or whatever, and probably had an easy time with Brackers and then gone to Reggie as melee and be like, oh, okay, you just use melee. If you've been doing the variety of weapons, which I have not, as you well know. So that was that, and I was kind of like, oh. And then nothing happened. And I was like, huh. Right. Well, I guess we're going for Alan then. Alatreon. I guess Mr. Alan Treon is next on the list, which meant certain things. It meant I needed, like, an elemental weapon, at least, because I'd been spam... When I had a couple of goes against Alatreon in the past, they kept spamming me as I need an elemental weapon. You've got to shut down his elements, blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, okay, I need an elemental weapon. To which a decree was sent. My audience made a decree, and Chris came in and dropped a decree. It was like, the audience would very much like you to do an event that is within the events list that you'd never find unless you were just completing all the events. You need to go and do an event. This is where I saw the other boss, Fatalis, which is Master Rank 99. Like, it won't let me do it. It just says you are too feeble to do this. It's Master Rank 99. So I know there's a boss called Fatalis, but seemingly I can't do it. In the 150, 155 hours we've played this game, I'm only Master Rank 40-something. I'm like, I'm not putting in another 150 hours or whatever, or like hard grinding just Master Rank levels in order to fight this boss. That's probably not going to happen. So there probably will be, there's very, very, very high chance there will be a boss I just don't fight, which is probably this Fatalis. Everything else I recognized. So probably not doing that. But then the event they wanted me to do was a Tempered Frostfang Barioth. And I didn't know, and I'm always wary when a decree comes from my audience. Are you trying to troll me? Is this like a ridiculously hard fight? Because if you remember back, you've been following along with this, my fight against Barioth was intense. This Barioth was the first time I went to the time limit of 50 minutes and didn't kill it. Sure, I had way less game knowledge then than I do now. And when I eventually killed it, I killed it in like 20 minutes. But still, this was the first time. My war against Barioth was kind of legend. So I was like, ugh. I feel like I'm getting trolled here. I feel like I'm getting trolled. I was like, okay, maybe I could craft something else, or I just want an elemental weapon. I wasn't up for it, but like Chris came back in and was like, it's a decree, they demand it. I was like, all right, we'll go in. Turns out this fight was stupid easy, like almost laughable. And it's something I pointed out at the time, is like the difficulty swing in this game is astronomical. It is a real pendulum swing. Sometimes you just go into something and it's just crazy hard. And then you'll do the next thing, which is on the same level, according to the description of the game, and it's just bizarrely easy. Like, it might as well just be like a mob from the old world, like a low-rank mob. Really strange. So, Frostfang Barioth, I just wiped the floor with. I was like, this is whatever. Done. But that did enable me, and then I figured out what was going on is you could craft an endgame ice elemental weapon. I was like, oh, okay. So they're making the chat has made it easy, so I don't go on some long-term hunt or open multiplayer or anything like that in order to get a weapon for Alatreon. And I was like, okay, I think I can now go for Alatreon. All right, that's where we're at. This is my job, and that's what I have the remaining few hours to do, is to kill Alatreon. Before the spoilers, I would absolutely love to pick up this kill, because as far as I can tell, this is the last boss for me to kill. And I'm basing that off the weapons list and the fact that there's something called Fatalis, which is way in the future of where I am now. So I'm guessing this is the last big boss, because the only thing I have left, I've done every quest in the assigned quest. They're all done. I haven't done all the optionals, because there's a huge amount of them, and a lot of them are just arena fights. And in my special assignments of what's remaining, besides events and some optional quests, the only thing left is 2 Alatreon quests. That's it. Nothing else remains for me. The game's not presenting anything else. I'm like, okay. Sweet. Let's get into it. Alatreon. Things that I know. So I'll be clear. I've been thinking about this all over the weekend. Alatreon. Things that I have now discovered after doing many pulls. I've done maybe 12, 13 pulls on this now, if not more. Because sometimes you can just die as soon as you start while you're learning this thing. I'm very unclear about how certain mechanics works, because certain things happened that confused the hell out of me. So I'm going to expand on my theories of how this fight works, because I've been thinking about it over the weekend. I used my ice elemental weapon. I gemmed for a lot of bonus elemental damage, and then tried to counter... I put things in to try and counter certain aspects of the fight that I felt were the most annoying ones, like there's some raws and things like that. But other than that, I kind of just went for DPS, using my same armor that I've had since mid-game of the DLC. There is some really good armor, like Raging Brackers drops really good armor. A lot of the armor that comes from like the late game bosses are all about Agitator, which is a buff that you get only when the bosses are enraged. I didn't notice Alatreon enrages a lot, so I didn't feel like I needed to change armor. I think my armor's probably fine. The idea of this fight as it's presented by the game is to destroy the horns, which will then nullify part of Alatreon's elemental damage, because Alatreon can use all of the elements against you. And the first thing I did was make myself Blight immune, because it kept giving me something called Dragon Blight, which apparently nullified my elemental weapon damage. So I was like, I can make myself Blight immune very easily, in which case I just don't need to worry about that. So I'll do that. And then I got in there. So I focused a lot of my pulls on just trying to hit the head. This was very frustrating, because the way this fight works from what I could see is Alatreon has extremely devastating attacks. However, if you avoid them all and don't take damage from them, he leaves himself wide open for massive amounts of damage, like a good 3 or 4 seconds. And at this point in the game, 3 or 4 seconds feels like an eternity to be able to attack these bosses freely. And it just became a very case of like, okay, how do I avoid these? And then noticing how certain attacks work. So he's got like a fire attack that goes out in concentric rings. Very MMO style. So it's like, oh, you can wait for the middle to explode and then go into that circle and you can DPS him. He's got 2 lightning strikes, which then becomes 3 later on. So you can just, once the third one's done, you can hit him freely. And you can bait them where you want them to be. He's got a leap back where he drops a fireball. So if you try and stay close and roll in. This is all very, in theory, if you overcommit by 1 attack, this doesn't work. He's got a lot of breaths. In my first 1 or 2 pulls against Alatreon, when he flew, because he's a dragon, I was able to grip his head and shoot him in the face, and it brought him down for a nice weak attack. This is where prog on this fight got really weird. Really weird. I could never repeat that again. No matter how many times I was like, okay, maybe after this attack, maybe after this attack, maybe after this one, maybe you do it in this animation. It never worked. He immediately shook me off every single time. But I did do this on one of the first couple of pulls. Like, it was fine. I like gripped, he took off, I gripped his head, I shot him back down. No problem. And I'm like, what is going on here? And it also became incredibly frustrating to actually hit the head, because he's so big that when he's up in the air, he's very hard to hit to do that. But I did notice that if you do grab a limb, he barely shakes you off. So you can generally do things like weaken a body part while he's flying as long as you are trying to find these windows to do it. But no matter what I did, I could not, for the life of me, get him back down. Okay. So I started avoiding doing anything during his flying, unless I could, like, grab a leg or something like that and just do something. DPSing the head, as I said, became... I had a couple of pulls where I destroyed both his horns. But then this led to his room-wide AoE. This room-wide AoE, I am super unclear how this works. In theory, and I've had this happen, which is why it got even more confusing. In theory, I'm using an ice elemental weapon, and then I destroy the horns, and that reduces his elemental power. In one of my tries, he did the ice AoE, where in the big room-wide AoE was ice, and it barely did anything to me. That made total sense. I have used an ice elemental weapon, I have broken the horn with ice, therefore his ice power is weakened, and then when he goes to ice AoE me, it barely does anything. Like, I literally walked through it and could continue DPSing. Every try since then, though, he's done fire. And fire just melts me to the floor. And that's very confusing. Because I'm like, wait, I've destroyed it. I haven't used a fire elemental weapon. So then it's like, well, what's making him sometimes do ice and sometimes do fire? And that then got me thinking, is this way more technical than I think it is? Is that I have to wait till he's in ice elements and then break the horn during the... Because he constantly shifts elements. Shift him during that to force him to be an ice element with the ice element weakened at the right time for him to do the AoE, which I don't have an in-game timer that's like on screen, before he changes back to fire, in which case he'll swap back to fire and then he can kill me again. That became very confusing. So I was unsure about this. And then it became very frustrating sometimes just to break the horns. The horns have very, very little health, like really little. But you could do so little damage sometimes, and especially, it became a fight. I actually went out to the training room to practice which swing is more downward and upward, because it was very awkward sometimes if you opened with a big attack. It's like, he just moves his head up, and you're like, you can't hit it. And I was like, that's really weird. And some of the dodge sides don't lend themselves easily to be able to hit the head. So I just thought, like, I'm just doing too little damage. Ultimately, I'm not doing enough damage. There's too much downtime in me trying to dodge perfectly, then get back in to make sure I hit the head, and then, like, having, like, a few of those swings miss. So we're just not doing enough damage. And then I was like, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try and maybe knock him over. So I started working on the legs. And the back leg, interestingly enough, can be gripped onto very easily. Like, he doesn't shake you off there. His head constantly shakes you off. Like, weakening the head is a real pain. There's only certain attacks you can do it on. And during various attacks where his head is still, it's like charged. Like, if he's doing electricity, he constantly, like, has an electric head, which just knocks you off. In a couple of instances, I was using the Rock Steady Mantle, which stops you being, like, affected by knockbacks and things. And it just killed me from full health to zero, because he's attacking it technically, even though you don't really see it visually, he's actually attacking where you are every quarter of a second or something, and you just watch your health bar go and just die. I was like, okay, well, that's not a thing. But the back legs I could. So I put, and ultimately very easy to DPS. So I put thousands of damage into his back legs and nothing happened. I was like, well, that's really weird. So then, but I did notice after a few tries, it said you've got an ecology level on it. So I went to study, and it did tell me the front legs are actually a weak spot. The tail, the head, and the front legs are a weak spot. So I was like, oh, I'll try this. And while I was DPSing the front legs, the handler said, well done, you're containing his elemental power. And I'm like, wait. Hold on. I don't need to break the horns to weaken this, which is why it's been indicated to me so far. And this really started to, like, skew my perspective of this fight. It was like, well done, you're doing a really good job. And then he fell over, and I was like, okay, front legs are an angle. Front legs are a way to go. But I still didn't survive the AoE, even though I was spamming, like, potions during it. It didn't work. I still died. However, it then occurred to me, my World of Warcraft brain kicked in. It's like, if he kills me here, it isn't that big of a deal. I can rebuff back at the camp, and I can get stronger, and I can just come back. Like, even if I don't survive this AoE, it doesn't necessarily mean the fight's over. And also, he has to have a health bar. That has to be a thing. And doing just more damage to the boss surely means he is going to die. Like, by attacking different body parts, I often hit the head accidentally and could break the horns sometimes without focusing on it at all. And then I got really, my brain started going, I no doubt whatsoever you're listening to this and going, you're overthinking the hell out of it. That happens to me a lot. I always try and overthink things, and then it gets simplified later. Because I was then faced with a different scenario, which really annoyed me, is that they were just spamming me saying, Ice Element isn't doing anything. He's immune now to Ice Element. Your ice weapons aren't doing anything. And I'm like, well, I can't bring another weapon. So, what the hell, dude? So they then thought, wait a minute, what if, and this was like the last few pulls of the day, I was like, what if I just screw off what these guys are talking about? Is that possible? And by that I mean, I'm not going to bring an elemental weapon. I'm going to get my, like, blast, straight up just physical damage weapon and just whack him to death. And forgo even bothering with this horn business or anything like that, just to see what happens, more than anything. Like, does he... If he kills me during the AoE, well, he's already doing that, so that's not a big deal. Does anything actually change for me in any way, shape, or form? If I just have this weapon that can't be immuned by the boss, maybe that works. You know, maybe that's a different angle of it. It's like, instead of trying to adhere to the like, set structure the fight wants, what if you just bypass that and just do a ton of damage to him and you can kill him that way? So I tried a few goes that way, which that was where I left it last time. That's where I was up to. I can't wallbang him. I tried multiple times to wallbang him. That doesn't work because he just runs to the edge and just turns around again. So I can't do that. Can't trap him. And ultimately, I think this is just about execution. So where am I from here with this fight? Confused. I suspect, or I'm guessing, is like with the constant sort of push towards elemental weapons, is like it's just a good idea to bring them. So I'm going to start today using the elemental setup and focusing the front legs to see what comes of it. See what happens. And then if I knock him over, I'll try and break the horns. But I'm not going to focus too heavily on it. I'm not going to like zero in on them too much. I would really love to be able to buff up before you start this fight. It's very frustrating that you can't do that. And I feel like, from what I could tell, there are DPS windows here, but it's a mix of patience and DPS windows. And the main enemy of this fight is having to heal. Because healing takes a lot of potential DPS time away from you. That's the big punishment if you're using mega potions and things. And I think the lean here is to probably bring a lot of replacement max potions, which are instant, and dusts of life, which are instant. So if you do need to heal, which inevitably you will, you can do it very quickly to get back in. Because there's a DPS check, which is like the horns and things like that. But also you need patience, because you can only get a few swings in per attack. But there's lots of opportunities for that. And every one of those that is taken away because you need to run away, wait for the mega potion to tick up, things like that, are just going to lose you that time. Because I believe his room-wide AoE is on a timer. I haven't seen the third one yet, so I'm wondering if the third one is just the end of days. Like, that's the end. You can't cart anymore. You can't do anything else. Like, that's the ultimate, like, enrage finisher of the fight. I haven't seen that yet, though, so I don't know whether that's the case or not. But I would really like... The things I want to figure out on this fight is exactly how does this room-wide AoE work? Because if I can make it happen with ice, and I've disabled ice, it doesn't do anything to me. It's just a DPS window. If it's something else, and it's maybe random, I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know. Maybe I just die to this. I could try different... I mean, I've tried Dusts of Life, I've tried Mega Potions, but my health ticks down so fast. It could be a case if I just need more resist. Maybe I bring, like, the Fireproof Cloak, but what if he does a Lightning one? That doesn't help me, you know what I mean? That kind of situation is like, if he does Fire, and I bring a heavy Fire Resist setup, so I can bring, like, a Fireproof Cloak with Fire Resist gems in it, so I have massive Fire Resist during that. Great, but what if he then just does the Thunder one? If he does that. I haven't seen a Thunder one yet, but what if he does Thunder and it's like, well, this is a waste of time. Perhaps dying to this is a problem. Ultimately, I think my main focus of today is going to be working like the front legs, trying to just be nice with the dodges and keep working them and using these opportunities without over-greeding, which is often the problem I found with this boss, is if you take that one extra swing, you're going to be punished very heavily. Like, sometimes it's 1 or 2 swings, and then you need to see what he's doing and adjust to it accordingly, and then see how that works out. That's it. I would love to figure out how to get him down out of the air, because I know it's possible. I have done it, but I'm not going to stress it too much. I can flash him to drop him, and then stop one of the flights, and maybe it's a case of, like, you just have to dodge this flight, and that's it. Nothing else. But we'll see. I have a few hours to do this, so I'm a little... I want this done before the spoiler cast, because I feel like this is essentially the final boss besides the super, super mega boss, and I want that. So we'll see. Alright, guys. Bye-bye.